Welcome or welcome back to Sky Notes. In this episode, episode 5, Tracy and I are joined by Kira Sutherland of Astrology of Health at Facebook or Instagram, and we're discussing self-care. We're debunking mysteries. We are going into detail about how to recharge batteries. We're discussing implications of the separation from the body that's encouraged by our hustle culture. Join us and hear a little bit about the recent eclipse season, too. We're glad you're here and hope you enjoy.
All right. So the why I was inspired by the topic that I proposed around self-care and the moon
Yes.
is that I'm noticing, and I've noticed the shift for quite a while, that when you say self-care, you can almost see people bristle. Like, it's just been so overused and so homogenized and so distilled into taking a bath, reading a book, and having a glass of wine that people just don't understand the importance of it. They don't take it seriously. The language has now been so usurped into Instagram world of bullshit self-care. And my sister-in-law, who is a therapist, mentioned she's reading something called The Real Self-Care. And it's this movement away from, and I'll send out the information about that if you're interested, but it's this movement away from, the stereotypical idea of self-care into more pragmatic things that can, consist of taking care of ourselves in that way. And it just got me to thinking that, to me, that self-care is always sat sort of in our moon sign. And so, when we're not feeling safe, when we're not feeling comfortable, when we're not feeling nurtured and taken care of, the default is always the moon. And if we're stressed enough, not the best things about our moon, right?
No.
And
Chocolate.
there's nothing wrong with chocolate.
This is true.
But so I just wanted to explore that idea in terms of, what are some positive things for the moon signs to focus on, maybe debunk some of the self-care myths. And
Yeah.
that was sort of where
I love
I was
that.
inspired to have this conversation.
I love that. Yeah, self-care, it's tricky, and where is it that it got too overexposed, right? Why is that a problem? And I almost think it's a guilt for people to take care of themselves. And what an ugly thing in society that we have guilt about taking care of ourselves. That's ridiculous. And then that makes me think of poor little, and I'm an Aries, so I'm going to say it, but poor little Aries who have to process everything through themselves. And then everyone's like, oh, that's so selfish. Oh, it's like, yeah, but it's not just how Aries learn. Really, we all have to learn through our own stuff, right? But we get, and in self-care, self-focus, like we're supposed, like it's cliche to even say it, but if we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have the energy to take care of anybody else. Or if we continue to take care of other people when our battery is low, that's where we potentially leach out vital energy that we need to run ourselves in a healthy way. And maybe that's where some problems come up for people. Not always. Not all ailments is because you haven't taken care of yourself, but there is that depletion of what we call vital force in naturopathy. And messages go wrong when, it's this, we get this whole societal guilt versus taking care of our physical form. Yet that's all we got is this physical form, right?
Well, and there's this interesting thing too. I discovered somebody called Mark Walsh, and he does something called embodiment yoga, I think is what it was called in the beginning. And so it's this series of poses that are connected to taking up space, right? So as opposed to make you comfortable taking up space, it's this kind of idea. But he gets really animated and upset talking about the mindfulness movement and how we totally separated ourselves into these three pieces. And now what? Because we've totally disconnected from our bodies.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so to me, when we put self-care aside and we stop listening to what our bodies need, that's when we create issues, right?
Yeah.
Because then we're just popping pills to get rid of pain. We're just doing all these things to ignore the physical body. And so, whenever we don't listen, that's when we put ourselves in danger. That's when health things can come up because our body is going to give us lots of warnings that we're not paying attention, right? And so I feel like that's when it's important, but it doesn't need to be complicated either. Like I
Well,
think,
and I would add that there's another view of it where even in the most stressful situations, and there's no question that the earth is kind of rumbly where humans are concerned at the moment, we have to plug into ourselves. And it's almost like you were saying, Kira, it's insulting to say, not only are you cut off from yourself, but then the next implication is that you're responsible for a whole host of things you're not responsible for. And
Yeah.
so it just kind of confuses your center and you can't orient or kind of make sense of the world. And so there's no point in that kind of evaluation. And so even in the worst situations, we require that. So certainly in situations where we want to continue to progress, we require that.
And, I want to backtrack a little bit. Even when we experience really bad health
Internet's
situations,
crap, yeah.
I also don't want to place, and I know you guys are with me on this, there's no blame on ourselves. Well, I mean, okay, if you drink a bottle of wine every day and then have liver trouble, maybe there's some responsibility. There's responsibility with our health, but there's also health stuff happens, and it happens. It's not health stuff, as a medical astrologer, let me be also clear. Health stuff doesn't just happen because of a transit. And
Right.
health stuff happens because it's genetic or it's bad luck or you have an accident or there's a million reasons, but I'm really cautious. I can hear how loud I'm getting here. Sorry. I'm really cautious about the whole, oh, I manifested this to teach myself something. Well, in hindsight, for sure, you're going to learn a lot about it. But all of our health stuff isn't our fault. There is great responsibility we can take in taking care of our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, because it's all connected. But yeah, let me just also say when people get really serious health things, it's not, I think we have to be very cautious in that spiritual realm of, oh, you must have manifested that for a reason. I call bullshit on that thinking because that's actually really toxic for people trying to heal. And yeah, I think that's a big one. Yes, in hindsight, for sure, you can see gifts we learned through hardcore illness, but yeah, we also, I
yes,
struggle with that spiritual side that almost lays blame on us. And I'm like,
yes,
At minimum, it's unhelpful, right?
oh, it's
Like
totally unhelpful.
it's a 1,000,000-foot view that's like on the earth plane, absolute bullshit.
yes,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and I know just, in training in a woo-woo modality, um, it attracts a lot of people who that is definitely where they're at in terms of, how whether they realize it or not, how they're messaging the amount of responsibility we have in our health. And so as somebody who has RA and is in process with it, I don't need you to look at me like I've done something wrong. It's
No.
not helpful, not even remotely.
No. And yes, there's things you're always going to learn through processing, through being sick, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. But yeah, we need to be gentler, and I'm going to take that back to self nourishment rather than self care.
Nice.
We need to being kind to yourself is probably 50% of the equation. We are so good at beating up on ourselves that I think a lot of self-nourishment really just needs to be us stopping that. horrible meanness we can have to ourselves. And some of us are probably born doing that more than others through different brain alignment or what society or sex or gender or what, the whole run of it that we create, society creates for us and we create for ourselves. Sorry, I've just moved it to a very large.
No, I love that. I love that. Well, I was going to ask what the role is for positive stress is in self-nourishment. I have done a whole bunch of different types of physical exercise, and the types that are my favorite are balancing or riding that edge where you are
good stress,
the edge of your capacity. Exactly. And so you're creating more capacity where that's possible.
There's a word for that. And I want to say, I'd have to Google it. I want to say it's called hormesis. There's an actual term. I think hormesis, I could have that. I could be saying the wrong word. But that whole stress response of the body when we challenge ourselves physically, it's like growing a muscle. We can grow our nervous system to cope with stress. The problem is in today's society, we have stress coming at us from so many different levels. But yeah, physically challenging ourselves, not wiping ourselves out, physically challenging, but yeah, there is that build the little muscle, push, extend, but also figuring out what that is for each of us, because we all, depending on what sex assignment you're given at birth, your body also responds differently to stress, and research is only just kind of dividing that down between the sexes, or sex assignment at birth is what I'm talking about. We almost all, tell me if I'm going too sciencey here, but almost all research is done on the male population, or male assigned at birth, for a lot of reasons, but a lot of good reasons, but a lot of bad reasons. But our whole stress model is a masculine model. And they've only realized in the last couple of decades that females assigned female at birth, we respond differently to stress, and we actually have different flow of hormones and neurotransmitters. And so, different stresses for different sex assignment, and also for different body type. We want to go really physically, different body types. I'm in the middle of trying to write a bunch of astrological stuff correlated to body types, not just planets, but like we're all born so different body types. Yet all the instructions we get given about health are like one size freaking fits all for this. And usually, sometimes they divide it down by sexes these days, but oh my gosh, no, we are.
Do you remember in the comic books they had mesomorph, metamorph? I can't remember. Endomorph.
Ecto, endo, meso. Those are science. That's science. That comes from how we actually evolve in utero. There's an ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm, and your organs come from different organ systems and there is a way to overlap that astrologically, but I'm in the middle of trying to kind of map with that, because we body type in medical astrology more through the elements or the temperaments and the humors, but and nothing against those systems, but they're very old, and I think we need to evolve it into, I am doing a lot of classes on those at the moment, but just trying to fit those pieces in, but I think we need to evolve it.
Yeah. I wanted to say one last thing, Tracy, and I'll hand it over. The kindness piece, there was an exercise that Jeff Green used to talk about that I actually did a couple of times, where I'm going to summarize it. Who knows how it'll sound, but it really worked. I wrote down all the negative things I could think of about myself, one little line after another. Then I got another sheet of paper and I wrote down all of the things that were true, that weren't negative, that were aspirational or were more kind to myself. And then when I got the list to address every single thing that came up, I recorded my voice saying all of the kind things. And then the key is you listen to it for 40 nights, uninterrupted, 40 nights in a
Oh,
row. And there was one night where I woke up and there was something like the batteries had gone out on whatever device I was listening to it with. But it truly had an impact, that sense of the voice you hear having something more to bounce off of and not kind of being able to muscle its way into your psyche.
well, they talk about um, how many times you need to hear something positive for you to take it on versus how many times you have to hear a negative thing to take it on. But then I
Yeah.
was reading research the other day that it doesn't take as much positive reinforcement if you get given the reinforcement while you're in nature and in movement,
I love that. I
or
love that.
something like that. Something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, somehow, well, we know movement, whether it's walking or sport or whatever, it enhances a chemical called brain derived neurotropic factor, BDNF.
Mhm.
And BDNF flushes through the brain and helps with neuroplasticity and connecting neural pathways. And
Mhm.
so that gets enhanced when we move. And then if you study or tell yourself something while that's flushing over the next couple of hours, they talk about it like BDNF is like growing branches of a tree. And then the study or the positive reinforcement is like the leaves then cross-talking.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's fascinating.
I
Very
sound really
cool.
sciencey this morning. Woo.
I appreciate it. I do little explainers for us, and for the eclipse, I still have to do one, even though we're late. I want to put up not the Twilight movie eclipse, not the vehicle eclipse, but do you know what I mean? Like the astrology is the study that we provide, but we come from these places of expertise, and there's no reason to leave it out. It's
Yeah.
such a cool thing to hear about it.
I really want, and maybe this is my little Aries Saggy positivity, but I'm so tired of the scare and the fear that gets created around eclipses. I can almost buy into it as well. And I really need to rewire that one.
Well, I like the purging. I thought that was pretty cool. And then
Mm.
fortunately, we know a ton of people who went to the eclipse, so there's all that vicarious joy of seeing that, or experiencing it.
I
But
know.
yeah,
I just feel like we need to celebrate it more as this magical moment rather than all that fear. And yeah, I don't
the
know.
fact that the Chaldeans knew how to predict them, do you know what I mean? Like, it would be one thing if we just found out about eclipses. Do you know what I'm saying? Then it really would be like, oh, I don't know what that means, but we've known about it. We've known the science.
I read this morning, you get your little email. I'm in the morning right now. You guys are in the night.
Yes.
Um, um, I read this morning another astrologer, Chani Nicholas, who I just think is such a beautiful writer. And she wrote a little bit on this eclipse because it's conjunct Chiron, right? It's Kazemi Chiron.
The minute.
I know.
Yeah.
And what is the eclipse actual degree to the minute? I haven't looked at the minute. I've only looked at 19 degrees.
1924. 1924.
Yeah,
I'll have to look.
I just remembered the
look that up.
24.
And I'm in the middle of writing a lecture on Chiron through the signs in medical astrology. I'm doing that at Norwalk in a month or two. And I'm going through all the philosophy and stories around Chiron, and we always say, healer, but she brought back the idea about him being this mentor, which he was. He was everybody's teacher. He's the teacher's teacher. And I love that side of Chiron. And so it was nice because I've been writing on that lately, but then she reminded me of that for this eclipse. And I was thinking about, wow, eclipse and the mentor, not just the wounded healer, which is what we so go into with Chiron, but he's the teacher's teacher. And I just thought, what a beautiful day to kind of, I don't know, I got into the mode this morning around thinking about all the powerful teachers that I've had in my life. I went into a whole, thing around that today.
When we talk about like the fear versus the celebration around it, it's interesting because I've been stuck in this space of how as humans everything is so binary. And it's like, so it's
Yeah.
either good or bad. It's either, it's dark or light. There's no room for gray. And so the same with these eclipses. We're either going to celebrate them in reverence or we're going to fear them. But to me, it's like, we were just talking about this weekend in my course and how people had gone to view an eclipse. I don't remember which one. And the thing that sticks out in their mind is how it went totally silent because the animals stopped making any sound whatsoever. And to me, it's not really about either one of those things, fear or celebrate. It's more about the awe. It's not good or bad. It's just, it is an awe-inspiring event that we have no control over. So really don't use it because it's not meant for you to use in a magical way, right?
It's more an observance, right?
Yeah, it's more of a, let's just honor it, observe it, move on, right?
Yeah.
So
I did notice that we're not in the totality, but I think we got like 85% of it, or I'm not sure. We're in the path, but we're not in the full path. And the animals did get really quiet, and all it was like a sheen went over the sky. So I totally get that piece of it, like knowing that it's um, this amazing construction in the universe, and knowing that when it will happen, and understanding that doesn't take away from the like physical presence of it and kind of the miracle of it. So
Well, it's almost like, with that quietness and the reverence and the moon going in front of the sun as we see it, it's also just stopping that brightness, stopping the sun brightness for a few moments to maybe see something else, right? Maybe it's just allowing us to see differently in the middle of the day, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay, it's not about the visual senses. And the fact that their animals go quiet. It's about perceiving things on a different level. Why is that not more of the description of it, right?
I think that's genius. And I think it's because of the rarity of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm going to know 5 or 6, maybe 10 people who saw it this time around. And I'm on the coast where it happened, so there's something to that exclusivity that maybe makes it more of a, projection target for negative stuff. But I do like that, because when you were saying the sense of your powerful teachers, I got the sense that you were honoring that awesome thing where someone has all this knowledge and they can reach out to you and share it, and are changed by that. And that is not a small thing by any measure. And I didn't hear control in there. So it speaks to what you were saying.
Yeah.
About like, we can't control it. So live in awe. I mean, I think that might be the position we could celebrate it from.
I love that.
It's
I love
a reminder.
that.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that too. So so the moon though, and self-care.
Yeah, the moon just went in front of the sun. Let's talk about her.
Kira fits right in. Totally off topic the whole time so far.
Me.
Not totally. I'm excited.
There's only one person.
There's a lot of Jupiter in the room.
Is that not a joy, though?
I like it. Yeah. So, I mean, my motivation for this was what I said about the whole self-care thing going off the rails. But the other thing too is that it can just be so simple. So, an example, as an Aries moon female, it's not that for me. I just need to set up something to look forward to. And it's interesting because I remember having a client with an Aries moon, and it was the same, like she was quite bogged down. And I said that, I said, just set yourself something to look forward to. And it was so wild because in that minute, you just like, she just settled right down. And that was an easy thing to do. And it wasn't like she could stop beating herself up for not taking naps and baths. And I just think that like, that little piece of information that can can, give somebody something that really means something to them that can really help, right? And so,
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be out Wim Hof breathing and ice bathing. But you know what? If that's what works for you go do it. But it's those little hits of self-care, because we have busy lives. People have families or pets or kids or work or whatever. But it's the little giving to yourself, right? That little nourishment to make your soul feel a little bit happier. That's probably how we should phrase it, rather than having to be so health focused, right? Like,
well, and so tell me
mhm.
if you agree with this. So one of the things that I tend to, because I don't know all the answers, of course, and that's hard for a Virgo to admit, but um I'll ask, what charges your battery? Because to me, that's what it's about, is about,
Hmm.
what can you do that builds up the reserves? Because I said that to a girlfriend, and she said, cleaning out my closets.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh,
It's an amazing thing.
Capricorn
Yeah.
moon.
yeah.
And so it's that's actually, that conversation was something that really, that's why this topic has stuck in my brain. And that was a few years ago, because it forced me to shift how I saw self-care.
Oh
So
God, yeah. A day to myself where I did a closet clean out yesterday.
Nice.
I was like, I don't need that. I don't need that. It's all sitting there. That gives me a high. I'm going to bring it back to dopamine for a
Yeah.
minute, because that's a big topic for a lot of people. Dopamine makes us feel great, but it also calms our brain. Dopamine calms our nervous system and makes it go quiet. The busy brain, dopamine quiets it. And
Wow.
if
Yeah.
your dopamine hit comes from eating chocolate,
Right.
having an ice bath, cleaning your closet, exercise, whatever. I mean, this is not true, but maybe some self nourishment, self care is about getting some healthy serotonin and dopamine hits. Those neurotransmitters make us feel amazing.
Yeah.
And when we feel amazing and rested, that charges our battery.
Yeah.
Healthy ways of seeking those.
Yeah, my husband is a moon in Capricorn and I'm a
Mm,
moon in Cancer. And that, I've called him like a junior astrologer because he hasn't studied with anyone. He just listens to what I go through. And now he's a pretty good astrologer.
oh,
And
yeah.
when we first got started, I would get into a state, and with my Cancer moon, I'd be ready to be wrapped up in a blanket, brought hot chocolate, with a movie on and left to
Mm.
my own, probably to cry, like Steel Magnolias or something silly like that. And I studied what the Capricorn moon would want. So when he felt bad, I would clean the house and I would put things in
Oh,
order and I would find places to finish a job he had started to kind of take it off his
oh,
plate. But the thing that I really appreciated was by explaining to him that there would be this natural, like, he thought a great date night was volunteering, like at the homeless shelter. And I was like, or we could go to this really nice restaurant and have really nice cocktails. So, learned a lot. But I find in relationships, there's something about that dynamic relationship of what makes you, like what you're talking about, what makes you happy, what makes you feel secure and calm.
yeah, yeah. I love what, and as a naturopath nutritionist, be present when you eat, be, mindful and chew and blah, blah. Uh, I'm a Sag moon, right? Let's get that right. I love nothing more than eating a healthy meal while watching TV. Like, that is my friggin' bliss. Not sitting around I will sit around a dining table with great company and have this stuff. But at the end of the day, I have give. I'm a lecturer at university, or I see clients, or I like, I mean, I'm sure we're all like this, but in the healing profession, I spend my day holding space for others or giving to others, right?
Yes.
I come home, I just need to be entertained.
Yes.
While I'm eating my yummy, slightly Jupiterian sauces and yummy, hot, good fats.
Yes.
And for years, I beat myself up over that. That's so bad that I'm not being more present with my food and whatever. And then I had a human design reading 1 or 2 years ago, which, has astrology behind it, as well as a bunch of other stuff. And the person doing the reading was like, do you like watching TV while you eat dinner? Because that's actually really good for you. That's actually, and I was like, how sad that I needed somebody else to give me permission for something I knew that I loved.
Yes.
But yeah, and to me, that's, so we're going to go self-care. So I'm so nourished if I can just binge Netflix and eat my dinner, and then I'll talk later or do whatever. But yeah. It's, nourishment, it comes in so many random forms.
Yes.
I think, and it goes back to what Tracy was saying earlier. It doesn't have to be having a bath with special sacred bath bombs or meditative breathing, chanting, whatever, if that's what works for somebody. But we have to give our permission for the self. I think self-care there needs to be some healthy versions of self-care, but it also is about finding, joy and happiness in what we're doing. And I think that's an underrated self-care.
That always reminds me of Gautama Buddha, the ascetic Buddha who was, skin and bones and nothing. And he kind of passed out by the river, and Radha, the milkmaid, came by and got some milk on her finger and shoved it in his mouth. And he realized that God didn't want him to starve to death, that God wasn't saying that was better than living with a milkmaid or enjoying the environment or good food or stuff like that. And when I read that story, I felt such a strong connection to just that realization of, oh, I can do, I can learn, I can figure out what I like,
I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that story.
It's a fun one. I bet you can find really good pictures too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That. Yeah.
Well, and I just feel like so many, like in the last few years, I'm trying to think if it was during COVID, pre-COVID, I'm not sure. Time's so weird since Saturn went into Pisces, but
it is, isn't it?
It's just so bizarre. But
Yes.
this like self-care became sort of synonymous with ceremony almost. Like set up the bed or the bathroom or the thing, and and it became work in some ways, right? Instead of and really the moon is very simple, right? Like it does what it does, it knows what it wants, it goes there without you even realizing it goes there. And so to make it into something so complicated and now it feels like I already have so many other effing things to do. Now I have to put the right kind of salt in my bath. Like what the hell, And I know for me as an Aries moon, a bath is no. Unless
I love it. That's a no. I have things that are a no for me.
Unless it's a jacuzzi and there's gonna be lots of movement in the water. My heart rate's gonna go up and I'm gonna feel like something happened, right? Like maybe I burned a couple calories while I was in there. Then it's okay. I'll go.
Well, I'm gonna give you the research on that, Tracy.
Okay.
If you sit in a hot enough bath or hot tub, jacuzzi, for 30 minutes, it actually does stress your cardiovascular system like going for a gentle jog. There is hot water for a certain amount of time, has similar stressing hormesis, good stress benefits as exercise. So does that make you happier?
Yes, absolutely. And I had myself convinced of that anyways. When we don't have a jacuzzi now, but we used to. And so then I took baths because I could go in there and come out feeling
You've
energized
done
as opposed
something.
to, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It fed that fiery cardinal moon instead of laying with the flower petals and the book. No, that's just no, not for me.
I find it interesting everybody's different take on what a nourishing bath is, depending on their
Right?
astrology or not. Like there's some people that are like,
Right.
I won't get in a bath to save myself. Other people, the bath is like candles and wine. Whereas I was like, oh, I could never drink in a bathtub. Like to me, it's I read books in the bath. If I don't
Oh,
have something
lovely.
to do while I'm in the bath, I would be bored to death. I can sit in a bath for an hour, but I need to be reading. For me, it's a reading time, whether I
Oh,
put bath salts in, or the truth is I prefer bubbles. I have to have I put in way too much healthy bubble bath, and it's got to be like bubbles spilling everywhere. I don't want to be able to see into the water. I need it like, maybe that's a Jupiter thing. Yeah, I have to be reading, or sometimes my guilty pleasure is death scrolling funny reels so that I'm laughing the whole time. And then I send them to, like, my friends can tell if I've been in the bath because all of a sudden everybody has 10 real, TikToks that I've sent to them, but they're always funny ones. Right.
Yeah.
I can't watch TV in the bath. I can't watch. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I've paid for that course. I'll watch that course while I'm in the bath. There's this entertainment to being in the bath for me it's different.
Yeah, I'm practicing being lush in the bath. I got, I had surgery last year, so I had like a long pillow, a table for gadgets that maybe I don't have, and the stickers to make the bottom look as though I'm on a glass boat and there are fish underneath me, which I think is the equivalent to what you're talking about with the bubbles. I have something to look at, and all sorts of scrubby things and things to toss in. And my fantasy to be true is like a spa, like a giant spa, maybe that's something that like a past life thing or something like that. But I have drawn this bathroom where you walk through the closet and it's sort of like, here's where all of the sauna stuff is, and here's where the cold plunge is, and that's not a person's bathroom. Do you know what I mean?
When I think about it.
But
I would spend a month in it.
And that's interesting to me, because to me, that now sounds like an escape.
Sure.
I could buy into that.
Yes.
Stuff right there. Right. Like, so it's interesting because there are things about it, if it's set up the right way, that I could be convinced that it would be a great idea. But,
right.
I think that, back to it being such a production, to me, it's like, if anything is too much work to set up and more than what I'm going to get out of it, the Aries Virgo combination, that's such a waste of energy and time that I cannot get behind it.
I love how lunar it is that we're talking about how to set up a bathtub or a spa.
Right.
For what's relaxation versus what's work.
Exactly.
Go search self-care. And
it'll all be baths.
It's all going to be bathtubs and flowers. Right?